My name is Jedediah Franklin. Jed, for short. I died by accident. My coffin sat in a little copse of trees for 3 years, never buried. I got a feeling my wife got ripped off by the funeral home. It wasn't even 3 years before the casket lid started to crack. For 3 years, I watched my own fancy black lacquer coffin. The color faded from deep black to charcoal to light gray to a chalky white and now to a sickly, mossy green. #1. I'm not sure if I drank myself to death or drowned. They pulled my body out of the old well. The one who pulled me out was my own brother, Caleb Franklin. I was so grateful to him for saving me. I swear, Caleb was the last ray of light in my life. You have no idea how damn dark it is in a well. Dark and freezing cold. It chilled both me and Caleb to the bone. 2 big old boys, 6'1" apiece, and we couldn't handle it. No wonder folks around here always toss their watermelons down the well to cool. It's a natural refrigerator. Saves on the electric bill. Luckily for me, all the watermelons had been fished out by the time I fell in. I wonder if they minded me taking a bath in there. When Caleb came down, I was the only watermelon left floating. He spotted me right away. That's my brother for you. When Caleb carried me up, he didn't look much better than I did. They had to carry both of us away. I regret not being a better brother to him when I was alive. I repent for all the times I tattled on him to get mom and dad's attention, landing him a 2-on-1 smackdown. I swear it. If I get another chance at life, Caleb, I'll be the best damn little brother you ever had. 3 days later, my wife, Brenda, stood haggardly before my coffin. It had only been a few days, but she'd gotten so thin. The red and white floral print blouse she wore just hung on her, making her look hollow. It broke my heart. She must be heartbroken over me, too. Honey, reach out. You can touch my face one last time. I strained with all my might to stick my face out of the coffin. Brenda's eyes were filled with tears, her body trembling uncontrollably. But in the end, she never reached out to steady my casket. After a long moment, she said, Jed, honey, because you didn't die a natural death. According to the old country rules, we can't bury you right away. The coffin has to sit out for 49 days. This whole woodlet is ours, so you can just rest here for a bit. An unnatural death. Can't be buried right away. Just let a bolt of lightning strike me dead all over again. I could just imagine the gossip Brenda would have to endure in town. And it was all because of her no-good husband, making my wife suffer like this. I ought to be dead, making her a widow so young. I ought to be dead, leaving my 3 boys without a father. I really ought to be dead. The only silver lining was that Brenda was always the one who handled our money. She ran the household. So, there was no issue with her not knowing a PIN or not being able to get cash from the bank. Because I was so capable, we had 3 sons. Truth is, I always wanted a little girl. A daughter, a daddy's girl. Wouldn't that have been something? To try and make it happen, after our first boy was born, I named him Cody. But that just brought us another boy. I didn't give up. I named the second one Dylan. And that just brought us another boy. I was getting scared. I named the third one Wyatt. Lord, the pressure. Does anyone understand what it's like to have 3 sons in this economy? I worked my fingers to the bone for years. I did the math on my savings, and it still wasn't enough to buy a decent house in the county seat. And now I'm dead. How hard was it going to be for Brenda? All on her own? Well, hell, the kids will have to make their own way. Without them, I could have enjoyed myself. Selfishly, I hope Brenda would keep the money for herself. Let Cody, Dylan, and Wyatt figure things out on their own when they grew up. Anyway, back to it. Brenda said I had to stay in the woodlet for 49 days. It wasn't that long. I believed her. Whatever my wife said, I believed. I stood on my coffin lid and watched her walk away. Only after she was out of sight did I sit down and take a look around my new home. It was summer. There were only 2 kinds of trees in the woodlet, locust and poplar. I planted all the poplars. The locust trees were ancient, left by the old-timers. I always liked the smell of locust blossoms, so I never had the heart to cut them down. When I was a kid, the whole area was full of them. You could always smell them in the spring. Not anymore. Folks got smart. Locust trees grow slow and aren't worth much. Everyone started planting poplar. Fast-growing, straight, and good for timber. For a while there, you couldn't find a locust tree anywhere in the county. Luckily, I held out. Every spring, people in town were suddenly real nice to me. There were 5 locust trees in the woodlet. 1 big one in the center, and one in each corner. The rest were poplars. The 5 locusts were all lush and full. My big coffin was placed right under the center one. It was the thickest with the most leaves. Standing under it, the shade was deep and cool. I squatted on a coffin lid and thought it over. This was a great idea. Brilliant. I'm not an idiot. What would you choose? A 2x6 box, 6 feet under with no windows? Or a scenic, open-air suite with a lakefront view? It wasn't a hard choice. Forget 49 days. I'd stay here for 81 if she asked. For that, I was grateful to my wife. But I felt a little guilty. I was comfortable now. But back home, there were 3 hungry mouths to feed. It was all on her. How was my wife going to manage? I was worried sick. Hashtag 2. A week later, hot dog, my wife came back. Brenda looked a little better today. Healthier color. But she was still shaking like a leaf. I worried she might be sick. I heard people with Parkinson's tremble like that. I wanted to tell Brenda to go see a doctor, and quick. Jed, the 3 boys need food on the table, school supplies. And when they grow up, they'll need to get married, buy houses. I can't do it all by myself. Sniffle. Seeing her cry, my heart just broke for her. It was my fault for not giving her a more stable, happy life. My fault for getting drunk and falling in that well. Thinking about the mountain of debt for 3 houses, even I got scared. Let alone Brenda, a woman on her own. I wanted to wipe her tears away, but she spoke again. Jem, my family, they set me up with someone. My heart sank. She was planning on getting my 3 boys a stepfather, but it's only been a week since I died. She continued, he's willing to move here, into our house, and the kids won't have to change their last name. He can help with the chores and the farm. Jed, you won't have to worry about us anymore. I let out a long breath. Fine. She was sacrificing her own happiness for the Franklin name. It really tore me up inside. Jed, if you don't say no, I'll take that as a yes. I'm going now. I'll come see you again in another week. I waved goodbye to her, but a part of me was already counting the days until she came back. I hoped she would bring my boys with her next time. I needed to know if this new guy was being good to my kids. The second week came and went. I stood on my coffin lid, scanning the horizon. I waited from sunrise to sunset, but there was no sign of Brenda or my 3 boys. The cicadas in the woods buzzed so loud they made my head spin. I knew exactly which tree the flying ones were on. I knew which holes the crawling nymphs would emerge from. Suddenly, a flashlight beam cut through the darkness. It was just Mikey from down the road, out catching cicadas after dinner. That kid was never shy. I was good friends with his dad. He always called me Uncle Jed. You could sell a cicada for 50 cents back in the day. I made a lot of pocket money that way as a kid. Mikey must have had the same idea. I decided to help him hit the jackpot. As the light got closer, I jumped on top of my coffin and waved enthusiastically at him. Mikey, over here. Uncle Jed's gonna make you a rich man. I was hoping he'd clear out every last cicada in the woods. The flashlight beam suddenly hit me. I put on my kindest, most fatherly smile. The flashlight beam jerked away. Mikey's sturdy little legs pumped as he tore out of my woodlet. Long after the light was gone, I heard a blood-curdling, tear-filled howl echo from the distance. That kid's got a good set of lungs on him. A little rude, though. I didn't have to slave away day and night anymore. The days felt both fast and slow. I could clearly observe how day turned to night, how new leaves sprouted on the trees, whether a cicada emerged from its shell left leg first or right. Life was pretty relaxing. Living on nothing but air and dew, I felt like one of those enlightened hermits in the old stories. One day I was lying on my coffin lid, leg crossed over my knee, just chilling. My eyes lit up. I spat out the leaf I was chewing on. In the distance, a figure was slowly pedaling a bicycle toward me. Looked like an old man, maybe 80. Heck, I didn't care who it was. I was finally seeing a living person again. Man, this guy was riding his bike slow. I figured he must have arthritis in his knees. He finally arrived. I took a closer look, and it was someone I knew. Old Man Hemlock from town. Old Man Hemlock was a lifelong bachelor. Us married guys usually didn't hang out with him. Truth is, he wasn't that old, just from an older branch of the family tree. So we had to call him Mr. But here was Hemlock, a guy in his early 40s, riding a bicycle like it was a mobility scooter. I just couldn't get behind it. Confirmed my arthritis theory. I hadn't seen a familiar face in so long. I gave him a big, friendly greeting. Mr. Hemlock, out for a spin after dinner. Old Man Hemlock didn't answer me. He just suddenly started pedaling with incredible force. The wheels spun so fast they practically sparked. Looked like his arthritis was cured. Watching his rapidly retreating back, I suddenly realized my purpose. I felt a sense of pride. I never thought I could still be a source of light and healing for my community, even after I was dead. The third week came. Brenda still didn't visit. I muttered to myself, folks around here seem awful busy lately. One day, a few out-of-towners passed by on the path in front of the woods. I vaguely heard them muttering something about a place being haunted. I wasn't interested in them. I was just bored. I missed my neighbors. The fourth week. Still no Brenda. The roar of a combine harvester echoed from the distant wheat fields. Harvest time. The path in front of my woodlot got a lot busier. Every day, tractors chugged by, hauling trailers full of freshly harvested wheat. Watching the focused expression on the drivers' faces, I thought of Brenda again. My heart ached for her. I wondered how the harvest was going at our place. I was always the one who drove the tractor. Did that new guy even know how to drive one? Was the grain silo cleaned out? Did they find the spots where I always put the rat poison? Brenda, honey, why haven't you come to see me? The fifth week. Still no Brenda. It hadn't rained in over 2 weeks. The trees in the woodlot were all droopy and sad. Folks, you won't believe this. The big puddle in front of my woods dried up. My lakefront property had become a pit view property. The value plummeted. A few days later, the heavens finally granted us a little rain. The pit collected some water, but it didn't smell too good. Kind of funky. I spent my days hoping my pit view would turn back into a lakefront. The sixth week. Still no Brenda. Good news. It had been raining a lot. The water level in the pit was slowly rising. During the day, someone's big white goose got out and was having a grand time swimming in it. I enjoyed a beautiful day of lakeside scenery. At night, 3 giant toads showed up from who knows where. They croaked and croaked, a sound even more annoying than the cicadas. I prayed those 3 toads would move out soon. Finally, the 49th day arrived. I was beyond excited. My older brother Bo and his wife, my brother Caleb and his wife, my 3 boys, and all the familiar old folks from town came. I scanned the crowd, but couldn't find Brenda. One of the old-timers urged Bo and Caleb to get me in the ground and let me rest in peace. But my brothers refused. They said something about the case not being closed, and they wouldn't bury me until it was. I was completely baffled. What case? What did that have to do with my burial? It made no sense, and nobody was explaining anything to me. So my attention was drawn to the 3 kids in the crowd. Oh, thank God. I finally got to see Cody, Dylan, and Wyatt. My flesh and blood. The proof that I had once lived. Sniffle, the 3 little rascals. They hadn't lost any weight. In fact, they'd gotten bigger and taller. Looked like the new guy was treating my boys okay. Cody was in middle school now. The 2 younger ones were in elementary. It had been a while, but you'd think the little knuckleheads could at least call out for their dad. Oh, well, they're still just kids. It's normal they don't know how to act at a pre-funeral. As Bo and Caleb were leading them away, I overheard one of the old ladies gossiping about someone in the village being pregnant. After everyone was gone, I realized something important. I was still living in my lakefront property. Nobody had mentioned anything about me moving. Full of questions, I continued my life as the carefree, self-proclaimed hermit of the woodlet. Fall came. Brenda still hadn't visited. All the leaves fell off the trees, leaving the branches bare and skeletal. The ground was covered in a thick layer of leaves. I diligently turned them over every day to dry. I hoped Brenda would come soon, rake them up, and take them home to use as fire starter for the winter. Many days later, Brenda didn't show, but my dear brother Bo did. My oldest brother was Bo Franklin. Bo brought a truckload of corn stalks and built a sort of fence around my coffin. My view wasn't as expansive anymore, but I knew he meant well. You find out who your real friends are when you're in trouble. Once you're dead, you're forgotten. I was grateful that my brother still remembered me after I was gone. I regretted not being a better brother to him. I really wanted him to talk to me, tell me about what was happening at home, tell me about my wife and a new guy and my 3 boys. But Bo's face was grim, and he didn't say a word. He turned and walked away. I noticed that his back was bent, stooped in a way it never used to be. My heart ached. It reminded me of our dad before he passed. #4. Winter arrived. The woodlet was covered in a blanket of pristine white snow. I lay in my surprisingly warm coffin, imagining the hot pot we used to eat in the winter. I even thought a line from an old country song. Got a fresh jar of whiskey and a fire in the stove. Snow's about to fall, so how about one more for the road? Sigh. That was the one downside of being dead. You couldn't enjoy good food or a stiff drink. All this poetic inspiration gone to waste. A few fat sparrows suddenly landed on my coffin lid. I prayed they wouldn't poop on it. Time flew by. Before I knew it, I had lived in the woodlet for 3 years. My big coffin had sat there for 3 years, unburied. So far, I was still pretty happy with my living arrangements. But recently, I'd run into a serious problem. I discovered that the quality of my coffin was not great. I'm telling you, Brenda got scammed by the coffin salesman. Not even 3 years, and the wood was already starting to split. Over these 3 years, I watched my black coffin go from deep black to charcoal to light gray to chalky white to a mossy green. The wood touching the damp ground had started to rot. I didn't dare sleep inside it all the time anymore. Sometimes I slept on the lid. I was worried about the damp. Eventually, the rotting wood on the bottom gave way to a hole. Unbelievable. One moonless night, the 3 toads climbed in my bed. I was outnumbered and outmatched. A fallen angel, bullied by frogs. I prayed for a hero to descend from the heavens and save me from this torment. Incredible. Oh, sweet mother of God. No hero came, but a giant black snake did. The snake, majestic and powerful, took on the 3 toads at once. But while the snake was tough, the 3 toads were no pushovers. I watched in despair as my own skeleton became a network of tunnels for them. Folks, I was the victim of the shoddiest construction job in history. My lakefront property had become a condemned building, and the condemned building had been taken over by squatters. Who could I complain to? Fine. A wise man knows when to retreat. I'll abdicate my throne. All right? From then on, I lived exclusively on the coffin lid. Every day I was on guard, terrified the big snake would get a wild hair and decide to come up top. Every day, I hoped my wife, or Beau, or Caleb would come see me. Maybe give my coffin a new coat of varnish and a waterproof seal. And while they were at it, deal with the squatters. One day, during a thunderstorm, a bolt of lightning, glowing an eerie green, shot down from the sky. It struck the coffin that had been my companion for 3 years and 7 days. 1 billion volts of electricity surged through my 206 bones. The snake went rigid as a stick. The toads turned into little golden statues. My teeth chattered from the shock. My bones were scattered, but damn, they were tough. I didn't scream once. I figured I had passed God's test. I was a real man, and a real man never says uncle. I thought the next step was that I'd get a golden body like the toads. Or maybe I'd ascend to some higher plane of existence, like in the fantasy novels. The cold, hard rain slapped me in the face, telling me to get a grip. Hashtag 5. When I came to again, I found myself back where I started 3 years ago on the day I died. On this day, old Mr. Abernathy from down the road was having his 3-year memorial service. Like everyone else in town, I was there to help out. I figured it was after helping out that I drank too much, got fuzzy-headed, and fell in the well. That double whammy is what did me in. God gave me a do-over, and I wasn't about to make the same stupid mistake. This life, I was quitting drinking. Oh, Lord! For over 3 years, I hadn't eaten a single decent meal. Tears welled in my eyes as I gazed at the tables laden with fried chicken, pulled pork, brisket, ribs. It was like looking at a king's feast. I was drooling all over myself. I had learned my lesson, so I began my campaign of revenge eating. I was the only one at the whole table just shoveling food into my mouth. These days, folks had it good. Nobody was impressed by a big spread anymore. The women were all health-conscious, nibbling politely. The men were all busy challenging each other to shots of whiskey with a side of peanuts. The feast was barely touched. Except by me. I looked like I'd just escaped a famine. Beau and Caleb were probably embarrassed by their little brother. They couldn't even look at me. They got up and moved to another table. I wasn't mad. They were my dear brothers, after all. Ricky, a guy from town who was also helping out, asked me, "Jeb, my man, how come you're just eating, not drinking? I thought you loved your whiskey." I shook my head like a bobblehead doll, my mouth crammed full of food. I love meat. I love meat. I love meat. I swore an oath as a ghost. No more drinking. Ever. Brother, if you drink, your wife will sleep with another man. If you drink, your kids will call another man dad. If you drink, you'll make your brothers worry and grieve. Drinking is a disaster. I even wanted to warn Ricky not to drink. His kid, Mikey, was a good boy. Couldn't let some other man raise him. Mrs. Abernathy, the host, happened to walk by and overheard. She said generously, "Jed, Ricky, you two worked so hard today. Don't be strangers with a bottle now. Drink up. When you're done, come get more. There's plenty." I made up a quick lie. "Mrs. Abernathy, my doctor told me to lay off it for a while." Mrs. Abernathy said, "Oh, well, in that case, Jed, you should head on home. The work here is all done." So I happily headed home with a big container of leftovers and a bottle of whiskey Mrs. Abernathy insisted I take. Food is important, but my wife is more important than food. I hadn't seen my wife in 3 years. I was so excited. I practically flew back to our familiar little house. I had laid every brick of that house with my own 2 hands, all to give my wife a warm home. The front door was locked from the inside. Hiv. That meant Brenda was home. I wanted to surprise her. I didn't knock. I expertly scaled the fence and landed with a graceful thud. Piece of cake. Our dog, Sarge, saw me and got as excited as if he'd seen a steak. Sarge was a good dog, just silent. When he saw me, he just grinned like an idiot. A watchdog that doesn't bark is a laughingstock in the country. Before I died, I'd been meaning to take Sarge to the vet, but I kicked the bucket before I got the chance. I decided then and there, tomorrow, I was taking Sarge to the vet. I couldn't let Sarge be neutered and mute. It had been 3 years for me and Sarge, too. We crouched under the eaves and had a good, long cry together. #6. Are you sure this stuff works? My hand froze. Sarge and I both pricked up our ears. I wondered who Brenda was talking to. "It works. Don't you worry. It absolutely works." Another man's voice came from inside the house. I felt like I'd heard that voice somewhere before. "But he's got 2 brothers. What if they find out?" No, this is a bad idea. On pure instinct, my trembling fingers found my phone and hit the voice recorder. The man sneered. "A man who's been drinking takes this stuff, and no one can ever figure out how he died. The autopsy will just show he drank too much and accidentally took the wrong medicine. But what if they find out?" Hiv. They won't. I had to deal with a guy who crossed me before, died the same way. The cops didn't find a damn thing. But, no more buts. Besides, so what if they find out? His 2 brothers are just a couple of country bumpkins. You think they've got more pull than me? More connections? Really? But I'm still scared. Brenda's voice was shaking. "Really? I've got your back. You don't want our son calling that deadbeat dad forever, do you? With what he makes, he couldn't buy our boy a decent house in a million years. You want our 3 sons to grow up and be single forever because they're broke. And no, that's my girl. And you don't want to be stuck in this hick town forever either. Look at your hands. They're getting all rough. Your skin's getting dark. When this is over, you'll come with me to the city. You can pick out any skin cream you want from those fancy department stores." "Really? Oh, you're so good to me." "Of course. Who else would?" MMPH. The talking stopped, but it was replaced by sounds that made my stomach turn. I felt like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over my head on the hottest day of summer. I was colder than I had been in the well. But at the same instant, a fire of pure rage erupted in my chest. It burned so hot my vision blurred. My whole body felt like it was on fire. The feeling was so familiar. Right before I fell in the well, my body had felt this hot. Caught between the extreme cold and heat, my muscles tensed. My fists clenched, my jaw locked, my body began to shake. I'm going to go in there and kill those 2. Sarge frantically tugged at my pant leg, trying to calm me down. I hitched up my pants and took a deep breath. I hated her. The wife I had cherished not only cheated on me, but she had me raising another man's kids. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why did Brenda tremble uncontrollably when she stood in front of my coffin? Why did she disappear after the first week? It wasn't sadness. It was fear. Fear that the husband she and her lover had murdered would come back as a vengeful ghost and get his revenge. Why hadn't Bo and Kayla buried me after 3 years? They were waiting for the law to give me justice. But justice was hard to find, leaving me to rot in a field for 3 years, a wrongful death. Even God couldn't stand it anymore. 3 years as a ghost had given me a new perspective. I was worried that if I barged in, those 2 would get desperate and team up on me. I just got a second chance at life. It wouldn't be worth it to get myself killed all over again. But I would make damn sure those two paid. I took the container of food I had brought for that worthless woman and her 3 bastard sons and gave it all to Sarge without a second thought. Sarge was a good dog. He waited until I was gone before he started to eat. I vaulted back over the fence. My legs pumped like pistons, carrying me back to the Abernathy place at 90 miles an hour. #7. Thank God. My dear brothers, Bo and Caleb, were still there. I dropped to my knees with a thud. The ground shook. With a mouthful of dirt and righteous fury, I let out a torrent of words. Bo, Caleb, you got to stand up for me. My brothers both flinched. They probably thought I was about to ask for money. Swallowing my grief, I laid it all out, telling them how my wife and some man were at our house, plotting to murder me. The crowd gasped. No one could believe it. I played the recording on my phone. Bo and Caleb exploded. They smashed their whiskey glasses on the ground. Son of a bitch. They've got a death wish, messing with a Franklin. Jed, let's go. We're going to kill him. I was overcome with emotion. I might not have been a good brother, but my brothers were good brothers. An insult to me was an insult to them. I could see they were genuinely furious. Nothing beats your own flesh and blood. It didn't matter how I'd treated them before. When trouble came, they were there. I swore from now on, I would be a good brother. All the men and women there, young and old, were filled with righteous indignation. Every farming tool from the Abernathy shed was snatched up. Those who didn't get a tool grabbed a bowl of leftover casserole to throw. If it weren't for the gleam of pure, gossip-hungry excitement in their eyes, I would have been deeply moved. Whatever. It was all for me, anyway. I've been a ghost for 3 years. I completely understood the need for some good drama. What was the harm in giving my friends and neighbors a little show? The group marched toward my house like an avenging army. The energy was more intense than a historical battle reenactment. When we got to my fence, everyone instinctively got quiet, holding their breath. I realized today that my neighbors were a talented bunch. Not a single person messed it up. I gave a hand signal. Wait at the gate. Everyone nodded in unison. I leaped onto the fence, leaving a heroic silhouette for my audience. I selfishly hoped that from now on, in the eyes of my neighbors, I would be seen as a shining beacon of justice. Sarge saw me and wagged his tail enthusiastically, without a sound. What good dog! I unlatched the gate from the inside. The crowd surged in, nearly knocking me over. Luckily, Ricky had sharp eyes and steadied me. I gave him a grateful look. Good buddy. No words needed. The crowd's righteous fury was overwhelming. It took all my strength to push to the front and reclaim my role as the main character. With the massive crowd behind me, and Bo and Caleb flanking me, my confidence soared. I took a deep breath and kicked the living room door open. You two cheating. My opening line was cut short as the horde of townspeople pushed past me. Those who couldn't get in were climbing through the windows. For a second, I actually thought my house was too small. I hadn't provided an adequate venue for my enthusiastic neighbors to witness the drama. The room erupted into a chaos of camera flashes, curses, and flying objects. The two on the bed shrieked in terror. The mosquito net and blankets were ripped away. 2 naked bodies were exposed for all to see. It was a truly disgusting sight. You bastards! I'll kill you! The hate boiled inside me. I lunged forward and dragged the man off my wife. It was only then that I saw his face. The man was my own good-for-nothing brother-in-law, Shane. I'd heard he'd gotten into some trouble with a cartel down in Mexico. What was he doing here? Everyone was stunned. #8. Shane didn't come around often, but most of the town knew who he was. I was the first to snap out of the shock. I started slapping Shane across the face again and again. Have you no shame? Jed, let me explain. There's nothing to explain, you scum. Seeing that I was just slapping him like a fool, Bo and Caleb joined the fight. Their big fists hammered down on Shane's naked body. I had slapped his face until it was swollen like a pig's. Bo and Caleb had beaten his body black and blue. I was seeing red. I hated him. All I could think of was the pitch black, ice-cold well. Caleb's body, almost as cold as mine as he carried me out. Bo stooped, weary back. The maddening buzz of cicadas in the woodlet. The toads and the snake that took over my coffin. 3 years of wind, sun, and rain. The torture of 1 billion volts of lightning. All the suffering I had endured for 3 years was because of this brother and sister. Jed, Jed. Bo's voice snapped me out of my frenzy. I had beaten Shane until he was spitting blood, barely conscious. Brenda was huddled on the bed, wrapped in a sheet, sobbing her eyes out. Get away. You let my mom and dad get bullied. My 3 sons had come in at some point, backpacks and all. Before I could react, my youngest, Wyatt, kicked me. That little punk. Just like his real father. No sense at all. He didn't even know he was kicking the wrong dad. Brenda had stopped crying. She was just staring at me and Wyatt in terror. I grabbed Wyatt's leg and gave his backside a good smack. Hey, you little brat. You kicked the wrong dad, you know that. I pointed at his uncle, lying there like a side of beef. Go on, kick him. I'm kicking you. You're the one who beat up my dad. Wyatt smacked me across the face. I grabbed his arm. You little rascal. Who are you calling dad? Wyatt started bawling. The man you hurt is my dad. You're the bad guy. My mind flashed back to the lightning. That green light in the sky was so bright. That rain on my face was so cold. Ah! I just recorded it on my phone. Shane said the kids were his. How could I be so stupid? For a second, I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. My soul, moving faster than my body, shot forward and wrapped its hands around Brenda's neck. You whore! You slept with your own brother. Have you no shame? No shame. No shame. No shame. No, I didn't sob. Still lying? I'll kill you. Stop hitting me. Jed, we're not really brother and sister. Sob. Huh. I laughed coldly. My hand flew out again and slapped Brenda's face until it was as swollen as her lover's. Whether they were related or not meant nothing to me anymore. All I knew was the wife I had given my heart and soul to had betrayed me. The kids I had worked my fingers to the bone to raise belonged to someone else. My 3 nephews were not Franklin's. Art, Bo, and Caleb seemed to have just processed it too. With a roar, their fists rained down on Shane's body again. Eventually, someone called the sheriff. That's the only reason Brenda and Shane were saved from the 3 of us. They looked like they were dead, but their chests were still moving. I suddenly realized how close we had come. I almost got my brothers thrown in jail. Brenda and Shane were barely breathing. Their bodies and faces were covered in a colorful mix of casserole. They smelled strongly of dinner. The 3 little bastards stood in a line to the side, crying like their parents were dead. ##9. Later, the deputies arrived. At first, they were scolding us for the severity of the beating. You went too far. If you'd killed them, you'd be the ones facing charges, you know that. The townspeople all pulled out their phones as evidence. Officer, look at this. Who wouldn't get mad in this situation? Killing them would be too good for them. In the old days, they'd be stoned for this. The deputy was stunned into silence by the dozens of phone screens showing the naked scene and by the chorus of angry voices. I looked at everyone gratefully. Then, with the grim determination of a man on a mission, I played the recording on my phone. I have evidence too. Listen to this. The sounds of Brenda and Shane plotting my murder filled the air. My buddy Ricky, ever the quick thinker, had secured the glass of poison water they had planned for me to drink. Officer, this is the poison water. I gave my good buddy another grateful look. My head had been so full of rage, I hadn't thought of those details. The deputy took the glass with a solemn expression. They had a field test kit in the car, and the results came back positive on the spot. The evidence was undeniable. Brenda and Shane's plot to murder me was laid bare. The deputies took Brenda, Shane, and the 3 little bastards away. Later, the verdict came down. Shane was sentenced to death. Turns out, his attempt on my life was just the tip of the iceberg. When the detectives started digging, they connected him to several other unsolved murders. So, Shane won the death penalty lottery. I guess I have those other poor souls to thank. Brenda got 5 years. I divorced her. 10 years of marriage, 3 kids, and none of it was real. The house, the yard, all of it felt empty. It was just me and Sarge left. All my effort, my youth. I can never get it back. Women are nothing but trouble. I'll never believe in love again. I decided to leave that place of painful memories. I put the house I had built with my own hands up for sale. But in a small town where everyone has their own house and land, it wasn't an easy sell. Eventually, a guy in the county who raised foxes for fur heard my place was for sale. He came by, looked around, and liked the setup. It didn't sell for much. I split the money between Bo and Caleb. I took Sarge to the vet. It was true. Someone had poisoned his vocal cords. I asked Bo to look after Sarge for a while. Once I got settled somewhere else, I'd come back for him. The day I left, Bo and Caleb were emotional. They told me to be careful out there in the world, and to not get fooled by a woman again. I nodded. Bo, Caleb, I'm leaving. You two take care. I'll be back for Christmas to see you. Jed, you remember what we said? Out there, you keep your eyes wide open. I know. Bo, Caleb, you should go on back home now. And that was that. There was no longer any room for a woman in my heart.